Hello and welcome back to the Timeline Astrology podcast with myself, Gary O'Toole, and my guest, Kishori. We're continuing with our Maps of Consciousness series, and today is all about Rahu in the sign Pisces, the 12th sign of the zodiac, the natural ending before we begin again, and the whole theme of Rahu coming to an end and beginning again reminds us that we have no beginning and no end. And I think this is what I got more so than anything from this conversation. I hope you get the same. I hope you enjoy it. And without further ado, here's Kishori. So welcome, Kishori.
Yes, thank you. To be back again. It seems like a long, long time, but it's only a breath, isn't it?
It's only a breath. What it feels like sometimes when I sit and talk with you is that, it's a homecoming, but it's like the sense that I haven't left either. But we always get talking before I press record, and then you say so many things that are like, wait, I'm writing it down. Wait, hold that thought. We'll record that because it's always so relevant.
Ask me the questions and whatever it is you'd like to inquire and you'd like to deliver to your audience, and I'm happy to respond, whatever. It's like we can't just say, hey guys, here's the ocean. It's all there. Go and sit and look at the ocean. But you have to point out, as I was saying before we started the recording, that you direct. It's like there's an orchestra here, and you say, okay, I'd like you to look at that little bit of the sea and the way the waves break there, and the way when the tide turns, how the chaos produces different patterns and different frequencies. And so, as I said, it necessarily has to be you doing it or directing it, because otherwise I could just sit here and talk myself, or not even talk, just sit and bliss in the conflagration in the heart center, just go. Mm-hmm. So there you are, up to you.
But it's interesting how you brought up a couple of points already. You know how you use the image of the riverbed?
Oh, yeah, I use that a lot. In fact, riverbed is my handle on the my email. There's an email called riverbed at, I can't remember now. Mm-hmm. It's one of them, because we're making the riverbed, but it's the river that's making the riverbed. And it's like chicken and egg. I was pondering on it this morning. What comes first, the shape, form? But it's not. It's nama rupa. It's the name and the form together. And all this magic, the magical world, the clay, it comes into form. It's so funny because I'm using words even more. I'm using special Sanskrit words because my groups, they don't only Sanskrit really, because they're not really in that frame of mind. But I use a word because it has a certain frequency in Sanskrit, like spanda, and I don't even know how some of them are said. Fortunately, there's something on Google where you can just get the word. If you're quick, you can get the word, how to say it in Sanskrit. But it's that the vibration, it's just the frequencies, the vibration is all one. And we are all the waves of the ocean, and they go on forever and ever. And I was just seeing this morning how looking back to revise my life, thinking, well, where did I begin? And then it was that song, where do I begin to tell the story of so great? And it's like that. It's the game, the Leela, the love story, and it's the kind of delight in seeing that how it can be myriads and myriads and infinite numbers of frequencies, and yet it's only one ocean. Water is one, flow is one. So, and there you go.
I love this thought of like, where do I begin? Where did I begin?
Where do I begin?
Because the Pisces, of course, is that the symbolism of the two fish swimming in opposite directions, and the oceans.
Of course, yes.
Yes. It's kind of like there's no, like the circle, there's no beginning and no end.
That's right. And I've always loved things, that story, I can't remember who wrote it, that never-ending story. That lovely thing they show at Christmas sometimes. But And I can see that they were talking about revising your life, going back to birth, but it's not birth. I mean, it's like it didn't begin in time. You can enter into this game, this magic mirror, if you like, that we're in at any point. It doesn't matter where you begin, because there is no beginning. So you might as well just poke your finger into the snow globe and go, oh, here, 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 here. It's like when I was sorting out the padders for the book, and it's like, doesn't really matter. Just toss them in the air, and wherever they fall, that pattern is perfect.
Right. That makes so much sense. I mean, for me as an astrologer, I'm constantly doing this thing where I sometimes feel like I'm remembering the future.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly how it is, because it all goes round and round and round in cycles, and it has to be like this pattern of drifting clouds, and yet there is a kind of matrix, like, you know, like making copper sulfate crystals when you're a kid in school. There's a certain that pattern, and we can change that. That's what's interesting. As somehow, I don't know, everything I say is not how it is, but I do my best, but it's not quite true. But it's like everything is cyclical, so that if you're in a state where you're going in one direction, you can be absolutely sure that it's got to go in the other direction. So you might as well include them both. I was listening to a bit of the Kabbalion earlier on today, and yes, it just has to go, because you might as well go to the place where they're already swimming in opposite directions, and then it isn't quite so like bipolar, you know. Not so much swinging one way and the other, because if your mind, if the mind of the one is expanded to be that of the of source, of creator, right now, you don't have to jump from one to another. It's already included that the opposite is true.
This is such an important point, like when we talk about Rahu now in Pisces, because if we think about how, well, let me throw in a bit of astrology here.
Yes, go on.
If Mercury, which is said to be debilitated in Pisces, where it doesn't function as well because it's the intellect, and the intellect can grapple with all of these notions of there's no beginning, there's no end, where, you know, and all of these paradoxes, it's very hard to sort of fathom the depth of the ocean. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
So
yes.
it's not that it's not creative in that space, and it can be very creative, but it can also be bipolar. Do you know what I mean? It can be swinging from one side to the other, like you say. So if we throw Rahu into the mix in Pisces, which we will be in a year and a half when it moves in, transiting, it can become more extreme.
That's going to be at the end of
2023.
Yeah, exciting. Yes. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
But it's that, like you say as well, that Pisces is the end game in a way, the ending, the last sign of the zodiac. But there's no beginning or no end in another way. It just begins again. And it's interesting that the last lunar mansion in Pisces, Revati, is ruled by Pusha, and he's the shepherder. It's very much the archetype of the shepherder, and, you know, Jesus, you know, and his father Joseph, the shepherd. It's kind of shepherding souls in a way as well, from one stage of life to the next. You know,
that's what it says in the song, shepherding himself back to himself, since there is only the one. You know, and that's Rahu. Rahu's the shepherd, bringing, because you can't, if the door is shut, you can't go any further. So you have to find the way to allow the door to swing open, and Rahu will, if you open to seeing what lies behind that shut door, or that apparently, or the nothing. It's got to come from that place of restriction, or apparent restriction, because it's got to come from the unknown, and we have to be absolutely comfortable to be sitting or dancing on the razor's edge. We know, not knowing. It's a perfect place to be. What I call the Kayala Yoga, the impulse, the yoga of impulse, the yoga of whim or fancy. You know, and that's how humanity is apparently, within the story of time, becoming fully divine, source, creator gods.
It's interesting when we throw Rahu into the mix and how it can create this kind of extreme environment where it is this bipolar swinging. But how, if I think about Pisces, I think a lot about how it can go off the extreme end, like really jump off in terms of wanting complete oblivion.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like losing yourself completely in something, in whatever, in orgasm, in drugs, in alcohol, whatever it might be. But it's like that losing yourself to find yourself again, even spiritually as well, right?
Absolutely. I remember one of the bits of writing, that it said to me that brilliant starry consciousness lost or dissolved, and the risk, it's almost like jumping into matter and having all memory or all knowing erased, except perhaps that little tiny echo somewhere that one day you notice it and and it's all there. You can't ever lose it completely, or at least the possibility, because it's. I remember when I said to you, I asked once many years ago, "What am I doing? What am I doing here? What am I exploring?" I said, "You're bungee jumping into matter."
I was about to ask you about that bungee jumping
Yes.
because I mean it's so relevant to this, of course, where we're all like, you know how people say we're all a drop in the ocean,
Yes.
you know?
But and that's the thing. We say these things, but a lot of it is said kind of without real full understanding or clarity. And what is so wonderful is when the mind rests in the heart frequency, it becomes illumined. That's the Sahasrara. It opens up and everything is accessible. I mean, I know I've been talking to Vanessa about teleporting and about being seen by other people elsewhere, you know, and not deliberately, but I remember one wonderful guru in I can't know, where was it now, somewhere in Kerala, and he said to his disciples, "Now she has come." I was walking around the land with him, looking at it. "Now she's come, and now she will never go. She will walk here forever." And I went, "What?" Because my mind at that time hadn't really quite understood the acknowledgement that I would receive sometimes. I didn't know. I mean, I thought I was just English woman in her 40s, 50s, wandering around India having a nice time. But I don't know. It's like the clouds fall away, like, you know.
What about I mean, you bring up a good point here, because what about the Akashic records, where, you can go to India and have like a nadi leaf read about your whole life,
Yes,
but they
yes,
would only ever write them for those who would come to see them.
yes,
I mean, that's mind blowing, and the intellect finds that hard to grapple with, right?
yes,
There is actually this thing happening, but that's Pisces. That's the kind of the mystical realms of Pisces, where when you go into that dream state or altered states of consciousness and astral travel and whatever else, right? That's Pisces.
that's Pisces. Yes, I can see it. When I was a child, little, I must have been, I don't know, remember in a particular moment, 6, 7, 8, that sort of age. And I used to think, "Oh, I'm going to die." And I used to wonder at infinity and dying and all those kind of things, as children obviously do. And I just said, "Well, I don't mind, but I don't want to go back to being a soup." I could feel the soup-like quality of consciousness at that point. And who knows when it was? It may be some astrology that already, I mean, people would say I've played with it before. And I once tried to, I did Kabbalah for a year, and the robes and dressing up, and the pressure on my body was so great I had to leave. I just couldn't bear it. It was such pain because it was condensing so strongly, and this was in Hod, it's in Mercury, and it said, "Doesn't matter." It said, "You've done all this before anyway." And I these are little things that come to me because I knew, but I didn't know. And it's like we all do. We all know everything because we all already are, and yet there's something for the delight of discovering who and what we actually are, and the power, which is exciting. This is the fun thing: the power to be able to play in 3D land without being subject to those laws of being a leaf in the wind, being able to play with it and go, yes, like I do now these days. Sometimes I put my foot down and I say, nah, I don't feel that pain anymore. And it just obeys. More and more and more, I find that reality obeys. The experience obeys my choice. And that's, I'm sure that is going to be for more and more and more people. And the more you experiment with what mind says, can't do that. I mean, like driving one car through another car and coming out without crashing on the other side. I mean, I must have been in my 20s that happened. And I go, how could it happen? How could a car drive through one other car, close my eyes, hitting a car head on, and nothing happened? And there it was in the mirror, disappearing behind. That kind of odd experience of matter not being solid. I had several of those.
That's really interesting, but you bring up an interesting point here about Pisces, because it's said to be ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is guru, but it's also the grace. And I think Caroline Myss talks a lot about this. She talks about like having grace points, like brownie points, almost like that you store them up, and that when you take them out when you need them. So it's like you driving through that car. It's like you used up some points, but you had them in your bank balance.
Like a cat with 9 lives.
A bit like that, right?
I have had a few things like that they just, in 3D land, they just couldn't, they don't happen then. So
this is definitely Pisces land, because Pisces is everything that again, the mind, the intellect can grapple with. Like, how can we can't figure that out.
So you have to, it's really essential that anybody doing any kind of self-inquiry, any of that Atmavichara game, you absolutely have to root the mind in the heart and allow the mind to be illumined, because you can't operate anymore. Not the people that are listening to this, not the people who are with you or with me. You can't do it, because the mind holds it tight. It's like in a matrix, and it has to be the space where it can access all the other dimensions, like that apparent threshold of someone that's got a body and someone who doesn't appear to have a body. They'll have some other form of body, but from within, it's intermittent. Sometimes we get glimpses, or there are frequencies among us, among the eye that is many. This is we. There are all these different frequencies, and certain frequencies, and you can work out the frequencies by looking at the astrological charts. You know, the different.
But what I find fascinating all the time is when I'm doing readings for people who have never ever looked at their chart before, and it's like you say, it's like they're just remembering.
Of course,
they know it on some level
because it's all already happened.
Exactly. So even though we might be talking about the future, it's already happened, and so that they have this knowing of this.
And you know what the magic is? It's learning how to play this game, or at least waking up to realize you can play this game here differently, from hitting your head against the computer screen to actually expanding, and the various levels that you can play in them all. And that what happened to me by chance, so it seemed, about this car thing and other things, they are still laws, but laws at a different frequency. Like I said, I was listening to somebody was reading the Kabbalion, and I'm looking at it, and I know it's all one, and it doesn't actually just serve at certain level to just say, well, it's all one, full stop. I mean, no, we want to be able to feel all the frequencies, and all sorts of ways of which I've discovered, exploring for myself, which I share with people. It's like if you want to know something that somebody else appears to know, or some grace that somebody else has got, you can just sit down quietly and tune into them, connect at the heart, and then you can do a what's his name, Mr. Spock mind meld, and you can download, you can just merge at the heart, not in the mind, not mind, it's a heart, and then go to sleep or meditate or whatever, and whatever it is you want to know can be known. I mean, I remember years ago, well, we won't talk about that now, but that somebody was questioning me, how can you know? I said, because it's all up for grabs. You've only got to sit and look at anything, anywhere, and let yourself be illumined, and you can know anything about anything.
Yeah, I get that more than anything. And actually, in my chart, Pisces falls in, like, we have different houses, different areas of life. So we can tune into it in that area, if you will. So for me, Pisces is in the 5th house, which is to do with, creative self-expression. And
Yes.
as soon as like most nights I go to sleep with, thinking about astrology or something I've been writing about,
Yes.
and maybe a problem or something I'm kind of getting stuck with. And then I wake up with the solution, and then I literally have to wake up and write. That's why every morning I wake up, I write.
Yes.
Because it's just worked out for me.
Yes.
And
it gets easier and easier.
Mm.
And so, I don't know, anytime we get to a place where it's like overwhelmed, like we're saying, we're busy, it's just relax. It's just take 5 minutes off, and somehow things sort themselves out.
It's amazing to me how you always it's like you preempt it time and time again with the astrology. You're always one step ahead of the game, Kishori. But yeah, I was going to talk about overwhelm, because that's one of the other expressions of Pisces, where again, Mercury in Pisces is seen to be like, lost in the sea of all, like, even just thinking about anything is possible. Anything is possible. Then what is probable? You know what I'm saying? So it's like sometimes it can be overwhelming, like a stressed way, like the mind is frazzled and just overwhelmed, and the emotions that are coming up. How can I think this and that? How can I feel this and that? That's the two fish swimming in opposite directions, right? So it's like that overwhelm. So maybe talk more about that overwhelm and sitting into that, or just settling into that.
Yes. Well, it's it's somehow just listening to I've told you I was listening to the Kabbalion a bit earlier on, and really I've known for many years, even before I explored alchemy, that the main thing is looking at that body of knowledge, that ancient knowledge, which is prior to, I don't know, Christianity, or prior to any of the Vedic, I don't know, but it's like it's all one. Everything is you. And the thing that I know I have to play with more is the precision, and finding out what the heart really wants, it really desires to give birth to in this particular body. Because while I know I am very, what shall we call it, this diffuse consciousness, that's easy for me. But the precision of making choices, which we are here to do, at least I know it's one of my bit of my dharma, is to make sure that I make choices, and to surrender to making this choice and this and this and this, because the whole of the quantum field or the ocean is available to me, and I love to just swim in that. I love to. And you probably could tell me some wonderful thing about my chart if I were looking at it. But I love to be in that diffuse, choiceless, but it doesn't serve at the moment. For many years I've been hearing, now whether this is me or general, I haven't fully examined, but it's the time for precision creation. It's the time for becoming precise, diamond sharp, and making sure that the individual, the uniqueness of this fingerprint, this particular thing is valued. So this pada, these selections of moments of nexus points in my life that I've put in the book, in the padas, the different bits I've chosen, and being ever more precise. It's almost filigree. I remember once being shown that it had to be of such precise care and value that it had to be like the veins on a leaf, or the feathers on the tip of a bird's wing, in each tiny bit, little bit, like in the Gospels, that the Father knows even a bird falls to the earth. So it's the the detail of the precision, and the magic is in that detail, that bursting of one little cell of a raspberry as you put it in your mouth, and the valuing of that one little taste. And we tend to, at least I, in this body, I tend to be too general about it. But the love is in each tiny kiss, that little little insect, that little, the tiniest little detail.
That is really interesting in terms of, again, the astrology, because, and I'm going to always bring it back to the astrology, right?
Yeah, go on. Yes, you
But
must.
Pisces, if you think of it, and the symbolism of the ocean and the anything and everything and everyone, but then the opposite sign, as in a way, all signs are polarized on one end in a way, because
Yes,
then you can
yes.
look at the opposite to see the opposite extreme, which is Virgo, where it's all
Yes.
about the details.
Yes, my chart, lots of Virgo.
But
Go on.
isn't it interesting though? It's like, and of course, if we are on either side of any sign, but in this case of Pisces and Virgo, there can be this sort of swimming in the sea of possibility, but doing nothing. I've literally heard of people. One person I remember who has a lot of planets in Pisces and turning up at the airport without having booked the flight. You know what I mean? It's like, do you know what I mean? It's like we do need some of the details, the Virgo stuff.
We do, and we have, in the end, it has to come to that sense of balance and equilibrium, of making sure that we include it all, and looking at the areas of your life where it's easy, that you have evolved. And then, I mean, I'm playing at the moment with looking at the areas of my clients or me, the life that I haven't really fully lived, that I wouldn't like to exit this story without having completed all of it. And yet I have, in if I'm everybody in everybody's body, which I sometimes find myself merging with people, I have to bring myself back to the detail, the definition of what is the dharma of this particular embodiment now. Although I'm all, there's this it now, and that's kind of my constant shruti note in this particular body. I mean, and I have to say, I don't know fully whether that is, unless I'm sitting in front of somebody, whether it's general or applies to this particular incarnation. You know what I mean? I don't know. But I know that for me, it's about being diamond sharp, razor sharp, just being absolutely the tip of the arrow. What you asked about the fishes swimming in the opposite direction, and they have to come and meet again, and it's just,
or the Ouroboros.
Yeah, yes. But we have to. It's absolutely essential that we stop being in that Euroboric state, because otherwise you wouldn't actually play through the whole story. You get your, I don't know, if for a story, and we're in a Leela, right, this great magnificent Leela, if we hadn't got some contrast, we wouldn't actually have any story. We just say, there's light, let's sit and swim in the light. And it's not about that. We love to somehow play with the impossible, or transcend, or to win through, or, I mean, the hero's journey. And
Can I read you a quote that I absolutely
yeah,
love, and
yeah.
I want to use it in my book as well. It's by an Indian writer, actually. Let me find it for you here. It's by Kiran Nagarkar. Is it? I don't know how you pronounce his
I
surname.
don't know that person.
I'm almost 100% sure this is his quote, but if anyone knows, can clarify, it'd be great, because he's kind of, he in his one of his books he quotes this, but he doesn't quote anyone quoting this, so I don't know if he wrote it. But anyway, here it is. Everything has a place and a purpose, you told us. A viper must be true to his creed. The fang needs sharpening, the lethal venom a victim. Come, my beloved, lie with me today and always. No telling if poison and ambrosia are the same unless you savor them both.
Wow, yes. I love it.
It's a nice
That's
one.
beautiful.
Yeah.
No telling whether it's poison or, yes.
I'm struck by one of the things that I'm struck by and remembering is while you're talking is about my time in the Osho ashram. And I've told you this before about, you know, how in the evening times, and as you would know, when Osho was there, they would do this thing and they've recreated it ever since, where they hit a gong and then everybody falls to the floor.
Yes.
And then you're just all a sea of people in white robes.
Yes.
And
White robe meditation. Yeah.
yeah, and on the one hand, well, to be honest, like I told you, from the moment of entering, and this is very much about Rahu now, from the moment of entering the ashram, I was freaking out because I felt my individuality was completely gone. I was like wearing the robes everybody was wearing. I didn't have a title, a name, a purpose there. It was just fit in with everyone, and that was challenging. But it was only in that moment with the falling down in that sea of people that I found that release. But the rest of the time I was kind of like, you know, and obviously I was finding it at different times, but it strikes me that Rahu can and has given me anyway these extremes where it's extremely cut off, wanting to be somebody, quote unquote, and separate from everybody. But at the same time, it's swung extremely in the opposite direction where I've completely melded with the one.
Yes.
You know, it seems to be that it's always extreme, Rahu, that there's no middle path.
Very extreme, yes. It is. And as it gets more and more, it's like that ice and fire dancing on the razor's edge. And you don't know which way you're going to fall.
Yeah, every single time. You just don't know which way.
When your quote with the poison or the nectar, it reminds me it's the way. It's not what. It's the attitude or the way or the Tao. And I remember, and I can't remember his name now, somebody who plays with raw food. Anyway, the story he tells, there were prisoners in a concentration camp and they found some poison berries at the edge of the camp just growing, and they decided that they'd had enough and they were going to pick these berries. And some of them, I think there were 4 or 5 people, and this is a true story, and I could find my quote somewhere eventually, but one of them decided that he was going to just swallow it down quickly because they were desperate for any kind of nourishment. But one of them decided he was going to take as long as he possibly could to chew and savor. And he lived and all the others died because he savored absolutely every last little tiny bit. And somehow in the consuming of the berries, the poison, it neutralized it. And his attention to the detail, I've never quite understood, but I suspect it's something to do with the amount of saliva and enzymes and mixing it. And also, it reminds me of I think it was Neem Karoli Baba, I think Ramdas and his, Timothy Leary, all that lot, they took some,
oh yes,
they went for that season with their guru. And the first night by the fire, he said, "Give me the sweetest." And they looked at each other, and then they decide he must mean the E-tabs that they've got in the bag. And so they give him them, and he swallows the whole lot down, and nothing happens. And it's like that blue throat of Shiva, Nilakanta, and he nothing happens. So you can eat poison and nothing happens. And if you are in that perfect moment, sorry, my mind was just drawn to it. I love that kind of.
No, it makes so much sense. But also, I'm thinking about how with Rahu, it's like it's always just too much too soon. It's like wolfing it all down, the poison, and that's why Rahu creates this kind of undigested or even poisons that kill you, right?
So you have to turn him into your beloved. You have to love him. You have to, no resistance. You have to merge with him completely and accept, knowing that the moment you merge, you're out of the box. You're out of the prison. And that is the way to engage with Rahu. Very practical is to be curious and welcome him as the Atiti. Any moment that comes like that, instead of going, oh, and I was talking with one of my little groups the other day, and it's that contraction when something happens, like you lose the key or you cut your finger or something comes unexpectedly, like a bill or something, or you get bankrupt, or somebody dies, and that tightening in the solar plexus, or that little contraction in the physical. When you can learn to be absolutely at peace and open, that first moment, instead of the body contracting, something magical happens. And that's what I've been practicing, doing the Kala Yoga with people in one of my little groups, what I call the Kala Yoga, because it's the yoga of the impulse of the heart in the moment. And if you can embrace Rahu as the beloved, which are the words of the song, Rahu is the beloved, there is only the beloved. And there is a different frequency, you feel it? When you can look at anything, and your physical body, which is shaped to live in form, and the natural, the human response would be to contract in the face of something, flight or fright or freeze or whatever it is with the shock. When you can learn to be absolutely at peace with whatever is happening, you are transformed. Something happens to the physical body. This is the secret that I've been playing with the yoga. It's that moment of being the opus contra naturam. That's alchemy. That's something happens to the physical body, literally. It's, listen, I don't know. I'm still exploring, but I've found that I don't get stressed by things. It's like, I don't know. Listen, I don't know everything. I know little bits. I know little bits of certain things. And when I speak with somebody like you, like this, I can touch on it without fully knowing, if you know what I mean. I know it all and I don't know anything. And I'm just going, oh, wow.
But of course, that's the Pisces. You know it all and you don't know anything. It's the two fish swimming in opposite directions.
That's right.
You know, it is. And the great thing about that is, for me, and the allowing as well. We talked about that last time.
Yeah, the allowing.
We can talk about that. But that allowing and surrender, or allowing Pisces, represents for me, I don't get caught up in, for example, this day and age, all of the toing and froing and this side and that side and this argument and that argument and this and that. It's like, for me, Pisces represents that higher wisdom that can include all seeming paradoxes on a lower level.
Yes.
All untruths and this and that and all of these thoughts we have.
But that's it. That's the swimming in the opposite directions. That love of paradox, that entertainment with it. And it's like, wow. And I know I get, the last months has been a lot of inner knowing about shape-shifting. And I can't say more than that at the moment because I'm still engaged. But shape-shifting is it, because we seem to be so confined within the skin of these physical bodies. But we know that they don't end at this, and we know we're not this.
I mean, look at anybody who, like, if we just talk about shape shifting in terms of just change your mood and how your face changes.
Yes.
That's shape shifting. I used to see people, and I've obviously in my Rahu years now. By the way, my last year of Rahu, next year I finish Rahu.
When next year?
Next March it finishes, 18-year cycle. And I want to talk about that because it's kind of come full circle, and it's going to return to Pisces where it began in my Rahu cycle. This is the thing, when you begin a Rahu cycle, it takes 18 years for it to go through the whole zodiac, 18 and a half years. And that's how long the cycle of Rahu lasts in your life. So by the time you finish Rahu, you have gone through every single story, every single sign, all the 108 padas.
Yes.
Right. So,
like we were saying at the beginning, the 108 padas with the little 3 point something degrees.
3 degrees 20 minutes. Each pada, right? So I'm coming full circle now and back into Pisces next year. I get a sense of this already, because where did I start? I actually started by going to the Osho ashram to experience that loss.
You were in Pune then?
Yeah, but I wanted to just talk about how it's kind of like that, losing it and then gaining it again, and the beginning and the end of the story, and the kind of that loop, and the mind, and how that can grapple with all of that. But at the same time, it's just all this kind of peace and surrender that for me is Pisces as well. It can all be this and that, right? The undercurrents in the ocean. You know what I mean? You know how they always like talk about like the beware of the riptides and all of that kind of stuff. We need to be mindful of it maybe and practical about it. But in another sense, it's just I want to talk as well about other transits and Rahu before it returns into Pisces next year. Because at the moment we have Jupiter having just moved in since April for the next year. And there's a great wisdom in that. But it's also with Neptune. Neptune, you might know, the god of the sea, right? So it's like Jupiter Neptune combination and Rahu next year entering Pisces conjoined Neptune. The potential for confusion is really high right now as well. Like really high. And you can see it. You can definitely see it. So, and even thinking about the word confusion, to fuse with, everything gets kind of confused. It's like all of these different arguments, whatever it might be, you can just list them, right?
And the way through the confusion is always to go back to rooting the mind in the heart and going, wow. The inner judgment, the emotional reactivity is what causes that little contraction in the body that I was speaking about, that keeps us imprisoned in the matrix of our mind, our embodied mind. My feeling is that there's going to be a hell of a lot more freedom to play with the siddhis, the possibilities of astral travel and all of that stuff, whatever, bilocation, as we open up. My feeling is this is what many people are going to experience more.
Do you think, though, that they might experience it maybe through the more, we say, artificial means or like technologies where they are able to like transport themselves?
I have no idea about that. I am my personal resistance, I suppose, to becoming partly technology and I don't know, the artificial stuff. I don't know. But it's all mind anyway. It's all mind anyway. So I am open to seeing what might happen. But personally, I like to feel it's more nature. But how can we say what is nature? And it's like we've dreamed it all anyway. We are the one dreaming the whole lot, and all the new expansion into areas of robotic intelligence, and we don't know.
And the other thing about tech, of course, as well, is what it's capable of doing right now is this kind of deep fake, where you see images of people talking and it seems that's them, but it's computerized.
So much of it, and a lot of the people that you see in the world in public, in public, I look at them and I think you're not real. You don't feel real. It feels like certain people are robots. You can't feel the warmth, the solidity, the humanness of them. I don't.
You're bringing up another interesting point in terms of like Rahu, especially, and in Pisces more especially, in terms of what is true, because it's true that you can feel this way one moment and then in a completely different way in the next moment, or that you could feel two different ways simultaneously, right?
The solution, a solution to a lot of what we're experiencing, confusion or Rahu or whatever, is simply to take the attention to the heart frequency, root the mind there, and allow some order. Because it's much smoother, there's more coherence, and it's a kind of fail-safe way to steer your way through a lot of the confusion, overwhelm. But certainly it's the only way if there's confusion and I don't know what I'm doing. I just sit there and I put my hand on my heart and I sit there and I feel this conflagration in my heart that is consuming what is not might be perceived to be not totally coherent. It smooths out the chaos. That's my experience anyway, and all the people have ever played with this is simply to go to the place where truth shines, like the woman looking for her needle under the lamppost when she lost it in the house. You've got to go to the place where order exists. And all of us, if you want to have a simple way of describing what everybody wants, they want it all right. Just sunny inner weather. I want it all sorted out. I want it what I want, and I want it now, and I want it to be all right. But it's the Rahu forcing us, pushing us to make that choice. We have the solution to go to the heart frequency and put attention in there and cling to that place, to stabilize in that place, so that we have a way of steering our way through. And you don't need to know a lot of what shall we call it, the detail, the analytical stuff, to be able to create order. And my feeling is that you say we're going in, well, like we're going in cycles, round and round and round in cycles. It's that I feel sometimes, like matrix reimprinting. I trained in that years ago. You or a bit, or EFT, or revising things. I see that we've all lived all this before, and we have to bring it now into order, into some sanity. So as that happens, the new creation is born. I mean, we already played at the feet of, in that bit of the quote from the Bible, she who played at the feet of the Lord before time began. Oh, that's one of my poems, I think. Is it the Bible, or is it, I don't know. Sister of the stars, daughter of the eternal sun. And you can go back to the place before you bungee jumped, so to speak. Always the little song that the little child is singing, always at home in the heart. And we've gone exploring. We've gone, like, down the primrose path. And it feels so simple just to come back to the place, as Eliot says, the place we first started, and know it for the first time. And
it's interesting how we complicate it so much, because it is so simple. But like, whether it's complicated thoughts, emotions, whatever, complicate it by adding all of these other things to get to that state, because we don't know just simply to get there. We don't know how to get there. We don't know where there is, right? So we drink a lot, we do drugs, we have lots of sex, we do whatever we can to try and get that state as a substitute.
And worse, run around London stabbing each other or cutting our wrists because take the pressure off. Is far worse than just doing drugs. Suicide.
So suicide. Well, that's another thing, because of course, Pisces is the big death, as well as the le pity more, like the orgasm, but it's the big death too. So it's like that reconnecting with source, if you want to call it, or the one. But I mean, a lot of us confuse it and complicate it, like when it's just that simple, like you say. But I just wanted to say before we wrap it up, about Rahu coming back in next year, because I feel like, anyway, I get this sense, I don't know, but once it moves back in, and unlike the last time it moved into Pisces, where I was dabbling my feet in the water, I was like skinny dipping. I wasn't really swimming fully, like going to the Osho ashram, and I was like trying to lose myself in a way, but gain something in another way, which is all Rahu, right? But this time I have a sense that I'll be able to, because like you say, you need both. You need both the being at one with everything, but you are an individual also. And I don't feel like I need to compromise that this time around.
To me, this time, I haven't spoken to you since Christmas, was it? Before Christmas?
No, I think we spoke after.
I don't know. It is some months, isn't it? You feel very embodied, very more. It's only a subtle sense, but there's something that feels very, I don't like to use the words that we use, like grounded, but very fuller. You're in your space, you're occupying more. Your consciousness that you are is occupying your physical space in a much fuller way. That's all I can say. I feel you're more than you were. I mean, I experience it now.
When you have any experience and it's your first time having that experience,
yes,
which is very much about what Rahu is all about, right? It's like new, like next. It's very exciting in one way. So I've had a very exciting 18 years of this, but in another way, it's like it's tiring, because I want the familiar in another way, because that's kind of really more what I'm feeling now I'm going to be settling into, or what I am starting to settle into, is that I've been here before and now I come full circle and I can inhabit this more now.
So it's right.
That's what you're sensing. Yeah.
I'm feeling you inhabiting your consciousness that you are, because I'm not just speaking to Gary, I'm speaking to the consciousness. I mean, I'm very aware of this consciousness connecting with consciousness on other levels, as well as just one person talking to another. And you feel so much more spacious, bigger, I don't know, wider.
Well, interesting that you say those words, because what comes after Rahu in the cycles always, whether it's minute by minute, day by day, week by week, month, I'm talking about on the major level, which is an 18-year long cycle of Rahu, is always followed by, every cycle of Rahu, day in, day out, is followed by Jupiter, which is the expansion, the beingness, the spaciousness, the clarity that comes after the confusion oftentimes of Rahu. It always follows. Jupiter always follows Rahu. So that's the cycle I'm entering. Right. So I have a sense of kind of settling. I already have this sense of settling. I have a sense that Rahu is loosening its grip as we speak, like it's unwrapping its scaly body from around me, right? And that I'm settling into being. I'm not chasing something.
Yes.
It's all here. Maybe that's a good way to jump off and to like swim away from each other, and like let's come back again next time, and we'll swim back and meet again next time in Aquarius.
Oh yes, that's going to be fun.
The age of Aquarius, because that's where we're all going anyway. So yeah.
Yes. I get there's going to be these my precious yogic flowers, you know, Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha, and I just feel the freedom. I can feel it's coming anyway. It's just a question of allowing it. And I guess it, whatever sign you're in, whatever dasha you're in, there's an expansion of a sense of somehow. And whether that's just because I'm perceiving it and there's a resonance with you and we're perceiving it together, or it's, I don't know, it feels like it's general. There's those who choose, if you're ready to know what is not possible in 3D land, but is possible.
You know, I was speaking to someone recently, and I often like get these things from speaking to someone more, where it's the engagement, right? It's the back and forth. And I said something like, oh, you know, like when the world is in me, you know, the universe is in me. And when I change my mind, the world changes. Therefore, everybody has to change.
Yes, of course.
Everything has to change. I mean, everything is within the one, right?
That's why it only takes one.
Yeah. It only takes one. And that's a really important thing in terms of Pisces and Rahu and Pisces.
Yes.
You know, everything changes when you change.
Yes.
I think if people could really hear it.
And they think it doesn't matter. They think, oh, whether I do this or that, or put this off to another day, or don't, but it does. Everything matters. You've got to play the game as if it all depends on you, but without it being a heavy imposition. But play to win your X factor, so to speak. Yeah. So everything that you actually really, really desire is going to happen, because it already has happened. So maybe we're having some general cycle of completion. It just feels like the new human is about to be born. But whether that's in the next 100 years or next week, who knows? Someone was talking to me about revising, and I go, how far do you go back? Where's the beginning? There is no beginning. So it could be now. It could be just today. And I could do just like raising from the dead, or I don't know. And it's always just feels like I'm just on the edge of something absolutely incredible.
Well, that's as good as place as any to leave it, I think, and jump off from there. And let's meet again with Rahu in Aquarius, which would be an interesting conversation, I think.
That would be interesting. Yes.
As always, Kishori, it's been an absolute pleasure.
And for me too. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me for these lovely conversations.
Thank you. It's just a pleasure each time, and it's a real homecoming each time for me. So thank you. So that's not quite the end of our conversation. Rahu in Pisces keeps it going. There is no ending, there's no beginning. And I hit the record button again because we started to speak about something I thought was really important in relation to Pisces, and that is the experience of loss. And so Kishori helps us reframe that in our own minds, the apparent experience of loss of someone close, and how we can reconnect, because we're really never disconnected in the first place. So I hope you enjoy this last section on Rahu in Pisces. It's just about another 20 minutes or so. So over to Kishori. Okay, so we're back. We're back again because we started talking about something I think that's so important that we didn't address,
Okay.
and that is Pisces being the 12th house, the last house, the loss of whatever, the apparent loss of whatever, and the death of somebody close. So Kishori was going to tell us all about, really, there is no loss, there is no death.
There is no death. There is, actually, we're not born either. And I remember years and years ago, I was told I used to have a voice that would communicate with me when I was running the stables. And it said, one day I was washing the dishes, it said, you're not going to die, don't you? And I go, well, you mean this isn't going to die? And I'm pinching my arm. And it says, yes, that's not going to die. And I go, well, and then we have a long conversation. I said, well, I know all that bit about you're never born and you never die and all of that stuff from the Vedas. I know all that. No. This is actual, real you. What you are is not going to die. I go, okay. You mean I'm not? No, you'll do it some other way. And I go, how then do I leave this story if I, when I come, and I don't want to be bothered with it anymore? It says, you'll just take your attention away because it's a dream. And it was so clear. I must have been in my 40s, but it was about 12 years, and I had this now and again. It would just say, right, go and sit at the computer and write. And I would go, oh, all right then. And it would be like an echo coming from some of the weirdnesses that I've had, many of them, but that one in particular. And so I've always known that death is not what it seems to be from this side of what you might call the veiling, the cutoff, the threshold. There is no threshold. We are multidimensional. We are full spectrum consciousness. We are source frequency. But in order to live the game, the story, the lila, we have little cutoff points. And so we have to expand the awareness. We have to be widened on those neural pathways that are, we talk about widening the neural pathways. They have to be widened and widened and widened. And mostly it's not possible for most people because nobody reflects that level of reality. There's no reflection. So if you find someone who actually does know, and I tell you that what I tell you, I know. There's no question. I know that that's being transmitted from the I that I really am beyond this. I remember when I first went to talk in the States, and I could remember it was different because in America, they liked my English accent, and I didn't care what I said. And I said, well, they said, where do you come from? I said, before and beyond space time. And I would be just like that, full on. But here, it's like, I don't want it to be like a certain gentleman on the Isle of Wight, it's, and I know, I'm aware I've dumbed it down. But what I know is when somebody is in real pain and they believe that they've lost that love forever and ever and ever, or they're going to see somebody in some weird way in some other, it's not that. We never were here in the first place. We're not actually here in this story. Each one of us is like there's a massive camera obscura lens, and you're experiencing this reality through this particular lens that we're all transmitting, our own womb wall, our own space-time bubble around us, each one of us. And if you look at it, I don't know, so I haven't looked at all this in the astrology, but I imagine if I did now, I would go, oh yes, I can see how that is so. And why this particular mind, body mind here, as I can look at the various nexus points where there's been a quantum leap or an erasing of a belief. And a lot of it is gone. What I'm interested in, I was saying to you just before we turned it again, is the physicality, the aches and pains and the things that I haven't quite yet conveyed to the neural pathways. That this body is simply my body of archaeology. This is my history. This is my, well, the leftovers, if you like. It's the remnants. And so I know at one level, I know it's all going to be smoothed out, or I will experience the smoothing out. I don't know how. I mean, I've given up trying to do naturopathy and this and that and the other and Taoist herbs, and yeah, I do some jiggle, but I don't know. It's coming from the communication with the cells and with the historical record. And I know that all of it, and we talked about the Akashic records a little bit, we can just ditch it all now. We have the power to simply ditch it. I haven't quite finished doing it because I'll be able to walk better. I'm really, really long to be able to walk better. But I know we do not have to be limited by saying, this is me, this body. If there's anything that is not quite, and the length of time will also be able to be seen, I imagine, in the astrology. I mean, if you and I were sat and examine in detail all the little bits, which I don't need to, it would be curious, but I don't need to, because I know that it's all already done. What I am is already complete, whole, into the expression in a physical form. And that's what I was speaking to about, the precision of being like a little jeweled watch, like the detail, the fineness of the feathers on a bird's wing. It tells me that the love, and it's the love and the excitement and the attention and the that kind of little bit of enthusiasm, the splendor, the vibration, that, and looking at what I've been given in the knowledge and the poetry and the Rahu and all of that, that is like my Bible. It's been given to me, and I share that with people as I can, right? But that's my own Bible, I should say, my own knowing. And it's always much clearer for me to go to what I know in here than to read some Upanishad, though I like to do that as well. But that is the precision. And I suppose that I imagine that everybody must be able to do that. Certainly the ones who associate with me in my groups, I watch them waking up to the abilities that I seem to have in this body in the others. And they seem to just happen by osmosis. And I'm sure you get that as well, that your clients will get what you're transmitting and what you love, what you enjoy. And love is not just all lovey-dovey. It's like, oh, what gives you pleasure? What gives you excitement? What gives that little frisson of it? Something. And you are transmitting that. And I guess we recognized that in each other when we met, that there was a benefit by the light refracting on light, that consciousness, you see. And that's what the pleasure. So, yeah, so all you have to do is be aware that there are no thresholds, there are no divisions, there are experiences, but they are not real.
Now, that's a good point to ask you, to restate this, because you said it as I finished recording, and it's important for people to hear, I think, because for a lot of people's experience, it is the division, it is the other, and the loss of the other. So in this experience of absence, finding your presence, can you explain that a bit more?
Yeah. Okay. So in the middle of feeling all that pain and misery and loss and despair and whatever it is, you've got to go to the tiniest little speck of what you love. It doesn't matter what it is, but you have to love something. So if you find, let's say you've lost your partner, or your beloved dog that you've had for years, and you gotta go to that little bit of relaxation. It's like the little speck of light in the heart. I always activate that when I'm playing with people. That there's like a little star that I call the heart star. And that is like little twinkle that gives you an anchoring point, right? And you don't have to feel it, anything. You just have to give choice to put attention on that in the middle of confusion, in the middle of loss. And Rahu is all those things: confusion and misunderstanding and lack and loss and all of that. And that experience, which it's like a sore tooth, it draws your attention in the natural course of things. You've got something that's bothering you that really makes your heart break. That's why they call Rahu the heartbreaker. He's the eraser of pattern. He's the herald of night, but he's also the awakener. And he will force you to look at that, to put your tongue on that sore tooth, or to put your hand on your face. It hurts because you cannot escape it. But when you put your attention on that little point of light, if you cannot do anything else than find that little twinkle, a little star in that inner darkness, and you don't have to do anything except make a choice. Just like going to a restaurant saying, do you want chocolate cheesecake, or do you want lemon meringue? And you go, oh, I'll have the lemon meringue. It's not difficult. You can choose, but you don't have to get this great, lovey, overwhelming feeling. You don't have to make anything happen. You don't have to do anything. You just have to put that little laser beam of attention on what you consider to be presence, and a little twinkle, that twinkle, twinkle, little star. And if you can't think of it or imagine it in your own heart space, then think of what it's like to look into the star at night, into the sky at night, and see that twinkle, twinkle, little star. And it's that's the little splendor, that's that little throb, that's that twinkle, when the light is like scintillating, and that's the essence of the splendor, the throb, the pulsation of life, of reality. And that will work the magic.
Obviously, as an astrologer, I love that imagery, and it obviously suits me to just really focus on that. If I ever think about, needing to connect into that, and just that throb, that twinkle, that is very powerful.
It's the splendor. It's that it's the throb. And if you look up what it is, it's a little pulsation. And it's that what I like to call the Keala yoga, because Keala is the spontaneous whim of fancy. So the one decided to have a little boom. I remember looking at it years ago, and it was like looking into a sea of mud. It was like, like you imagine, like God said, let there be light, or whatever it was. It was the face of the darkness, and I watched, and it went plop, like a little bit of a fish giving a bubble out of, and plop, a little bit of mud moved. And I went, oh, that's interesting. So I've always paid attention to these little inner images, little dreams, or little, and it was whatever it is, me, the real me, fed me. That's what I call real nourishment. People often talk about nourishment, and I go, well, nourishment is so much more than just putting food or drink in your mouth. And you nourish yourself with a breath, or with that little image, or that little feeling, but it's that little point of light.
It's interesting because I mentioned earlier about Revati, the last lunar mansion in Pisces, and it ruled by Pushan, the shepherder. But Pushan, one of the translations is the nourisher.
All right. When you talk to me like this with these things, I think, oh God, another lifetime. I better go and get in a book. I've got so many books on astrology and different things that I've only half read, because for me, it was the direct knowledge. I had to have it. It could be that I didn't want to have to bother to go through my intellect, which is not inconsiderable, but it became much, much more intelligent, that when I really finally surrendered to knowing that in my little brain, it's separate, I don't know anything, but in my heart, it's illumined.
But that's the difference between Jupiter and Mercury. Mercury, the intelligence, or the intellect, and Jupiter, the knowing.
That's it. And sometimes I'd call myself, I think, you're really, really lazy. But no, I wanted it the easy way, the simple way. When my mind, because I've got a lot of Mercury as well, didn't get in the way. And it's been that,
But at the same time, you've used it in a way that, and I think it's great that the way you, because many like spiritual teachers especially talk about this kind of like getting out of your head, quote unquote, and not using the mind for what it's good for, or not realizing that there is that, and there also is this, there is the all is possible, we are everything, we are the one, but we're individual, and we're in that precision. I want you to just maybe finish with the thought of what you mentioned there before we started recording again, for people, because I think it's important in terms of, you were talking about when in astrology we're looking at two people's charts and we're finding the resonance between the two people, but that if you look back far enough, that you're basically everyone is going back to the one. And this is the whole kind of struggle that we're all experiencing in a way, more and more. And the sign Pisces, in a way, and maybe Rahu coming into Pisces in the coming years, might suggest that that struggle, that divide, is more apparent. But obviously with Rahu, it's also pointing to that union again.
When the struggle becomes more apparent, it's absolutely essential to relax and let the mind fall into the heart, to go to the place of not knowing, being willing to not know from the mind, and allow the mind to be illumined by the intelligence, the living intelligence of the heart frequency. Because if you keep going, like me, trying to get myself better years ago by doing lots of naturopathy and this and that and the other, and I can do my qigong as an expression of my body, but I can't do qigong to make myself better, because it won't let me. Do you understand? And the same with taking pills and potions and vitamin C and whatever it is. I can, but it's all very much in the moment, so that I don't seem to have any order. So the thing to do is, when there's a confusion and you don't know what to do, is to embrace it. That's Rahu full on saying, let go, don't try to know. Go to your heart frequency, put your hand there. If you can only put your hand, there's a vortex here, or a finger, into the center of your chest and make that physical connection, that is indicating to your, what I call the inner file manager. I mean, these are my names. I've got baby names for things rather than complicated grown-up names. And it indicates that you are willing to let yourself be fed, nourished from within, from that inner knowing that, and that is where we get spontaneous remission from. That is where we get everything from, because in the end, it's the choice to allow the power that you really are to illumine everything and to transform the physical. That's how it happens. Whether anyone actually knows it or not, it's your real desire. And that's the real you. That's the you that is the one that you allow to feed you. You allow to live you, instead of trying to control it by the mind. And a lot of fights happen, and things that are happening, a lot of estrangements and things that are happening, families. It's not that it's happened, it was like that underneath, but it was covered up, like I say, a lot of syrup on shit. And it has to come out into the open, like the world is in its chaos at the moment. It has to come. And if training was given in schools and to people who teach, that all you have to do is, when you are confused and you don't know what to do and everything's in a muddle, keep training your neural pathways to root in the heart frequency. And you don't do anything complicated, no complicated mantras, whatever you want to do, that's your choice. But they are simply indications of your desire to allow what you really are to run the show, as you're doing it anyway.
I think that is as good as any place to leave at this time. We will finish it, but maybe finish it with namaste.
Namaste.
That sums it up, doesn't it?
Namaste.
Namaste.
Yes. Namaste. Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Kishori.
You're welcome.
So that is indeed bringing our conversation to an end about Rahu in Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac. If you'd like to follow Kishori, learn more about how she plays with people, she doesn't use the word work, you can go to magicmakeover.com. It's magick-makeover.com. Or you can go to her new website. It's kishori.net. You'll find information there about this song of Rahu. It's already up for pre-ordering. So if you'd like to pre-order your copy, you can go to kishori.net. My own website here is timelineastrology.com. You can also find me on patreon.com/timeline astrology, or just go to Timeline Astrology and you'll find the links. I do a members website where I write daily and monthly reports, as well as sign-based reports and video forecasts for the month. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast all the way to the end. I hope you got something out of it, and until next time.